Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video we're going to give some feedback on Margaret's speaking test. So let's check it out. Good afternoon, my name is Glyn. Would you please tell me your full name?
My name is Margaret IELTS, but you can call me Margaret.
Cool, nice start. Remember, this part of the test isn't tested. Just want to know your name, what you want to be called, but, nice, short, simple, easy to understand. Thank you, Margaret. Now, in this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. What town or city do you live in?
I live in Moscow, which is the capital of Russia. Specifically, that's the largest city here, I believe.
Cool, so nice development, simple, I live in Moscow. A bit of extra information, it's the capital, it's the largest city. I think it's even the largest city in Europe, isn't it? But okay, doesn't matter. But, immediately very clear that Margaret is a comfortable speaker. She has no problems accessing, relative clauses, like which clauses, things like this. Also, she used the superlative, like the largest city, effortlessly. So even though we're only in part one, the first impression is that the candidate is a strong speaker, probably struck also by her accent. Her accent sounds kind of very British. And so immediately the examiner at this point immediately starts thinking, okay, candidate is 7, 8, or 9. We can forget about 6, even after one short answer like this. Now, of course, things can change. But after one short answer like this, the candidate knows I'm going to be judging between 7, 8, and 9. And do you like living in Moscow?
Well, it's debatable because I don't exactly live in Moscow. I live in Balashikha, which is on the outskirts of Moscow. But I can say that living in the center of the city is probably nice. But I live, again, pretty far from it. So I have to take about 2 hours each day to get.
Her S's are interesting. Her S's, there's almost like a hint of a sh in there. Like it's quite nice. It's quite nice, which is in some parts of Britain people speak like that. She also drops her T's a lot. Her T's are replaced by glottal stops, or they just disappear completely. Just listen to how her T's disappear.
Well, it's debatable because I don't exactly live in Moscow. I live
Debatable. Okay, debatable. We had the
in Balashikha, which is on the outskirts of Moscow. But I can
but glottal stop. But I
say that living in the center of the city is probably nice, but I live, again,
is probably nice.
pretty far from it. So I have to take about 2 hours each day to get.
I have to take about 2 hours. It's okay. Usually it takes me about 2 hours is the most natural construction. I have to take about two. I have to spend about 2 hours, or it takes me about 2 hours. So is that a mistake? For me, it's not a mistake yet. There is a slightly better alternative there, but okay, let's continue.
Here. So I would say it's pretty annoying, actually.
Cool, and very simple. I would say it's pretty annoying. This I would say as a nice little modal clause. I would say it's pretty annoying. Very good functional language to express opinion and effortlessly accessed, right? She's not looking for this. It just emerges and is produced very naturally. Sorry about that. Just a slight pause. Let's keep going. And how has your area changed in recent times? So we get some, question invites present perfect. Certainly don't have to use present perfect, but the question invites present perfect.
Well, the last thing I can think of is probably the reconstruction of the local hospital.
Cool, so nice hedging is probably the reconstruction of the hospital.
I mean, it's been reconstructed for 2 years now.
Okay, it's been reconstructed for 2 years now. This is a bit strange, and I can explain the reason why this is strange. So this is a passive construction, right? And Margaret is obviously thinking, okay, present perfect for how long? Now, usually in the active, with action verbs, when we talk about how long, we usually use present perfect continuous. So they have been reconstructing the hospital for about 10 years or 2 years. They have been reconstructing. Now, if we move this into the passive, unfortunately, we don't really have a passive structure for present perfect continuous. Sure, technically you could say it has been being reconstructed. It's been being reconstructed for about 2 years now, but it's been being reconstructed sounds strange to most people's ears. So, in this case, what do we do if we want to put present perfect continuous in the passive? Usually we just use they and we use it in the active. So instead of it's been being reconstructed, we say they've been reconstructing it for about 2 years now. So it's a strange thing in English. For some reason, we just don't have present perfect continuous in the passive. I mean, nobody really uses it. So again, is it a mistake? It's been constructed for 2 years. It sounds slightly weird.
I believe, and they haven't finished yet. So
Cool, present perfect. They haven't finished yet. Perfect.
yeah, that's the biggest fix they're going to make.
Cool. And a nice way to wrap up. So yeah, the so yeah is wonderful signposting to say this is going to be the last thing I say about this thing. So very effortless from the candidate.
And do you think you'll continue living in this place in the future?
I hope not.
So I love this. I hope not. It sounds so simple, but so many people would say I hope yes or I hope no, but I hope not is the correct thing here. Now English has these weird short forms, especially in the negative. You know, in the positive, I think so, I'm afraid so, I believe so. But in the negative, don't think so, but I hope not. And so it's kind of weird. It's kind of difficult to get all of those. But the candidate uses I hope not perfectly. Very nice.
I hope I'm going to get enrolled into the master's program in Germany. So
Candidate is speaking quite deliberately here, quite carefully. But it's only, I wouldn't say it's mechanical, but it certainly sounds like kind of slightly more careful speech than before.
I hope I'm going to get
I hope I'm going to get. So this language doesn't emerge as naturally as some of the other language, but okay, not a problem.
enrolled into the master's program in Germany. So I think about
To get enrolled into the master's program, all nice.
a year more now, and that's it.
Let's move on now and talk about education. What was your favorite subject in school?
I probably can say it was literature. Yeah, because I was really
Literature. Pronunciation is effortlessly just on the money. I think I can almost certainly award the 9 for pronunciation now. Of course, we'll see how the difficulties of part 3 and part 2 affect her pronunciation, but pronunciation is really, really on the ball. I can kind of put pronunciation now to the back of my mind. I don't need to think about that. I can think a little bit about fluency, I can think about grammar, I can think about vocab, but pronunciation, noticeably very, very, very strong and almost certainly a 9.
good with the humanitarian sciences back at school, and
Yeah, the humanitarian sciences. I'm not quite sure about this. The humanities or the social sciences? Humanities or social sciences, but I'm not sure about humanitarian sciences. It's not quite. This might be like an L1 transference error. So that's when you like translate directly from your first language to your second language. I think in Russian they have like gumanitarny. I don't know, something like that. So maybe it's a direct translation. So I don't know, the humanities or social sciences.
I was also good with English too. So these were my favorite ones, and also
Cool, love the use of ones. These are my favorite ones. Ones replacing subject. This is great for cohesion.
the teachers loved me very much, which made it easier for me to
Loved me very, I don't know, liked me very much or loved me so much. Loved me very much. For me, it sounds a bit strange. They loved me very much. Maybe it's okay. I'm very pedantic here. Loved me very much. Fine. I could definitely imagine a bunch of native speakers saying this. No problem. L1 users, native speakers, whatever.
get engaged in lessons. So
Cool to get engaged in something. Nice natural collocation.
yeah, that's it.
And did you ever have any problems with any of your school teachers?
Yes, I did. Actually, a couple of days ago, I was
So love the intonation. Also love the short answer. Yes, I did. This use of auxiliary verbs. So many students and candidates don't use these auxiliary verbs in a natural way, especially if you don't have auxiliary verbs in your own language. I have big pushback from students. For so many years, I've had pushback from students who tell me that they just don't want to use auxiliary verbs, right? When you're teaching lower level learners, you're teaching present simple, you say, do you like tea? Yes, I do. Do you like coffee? No, I don't. And so many students say, no. I just want to say yes or no. I don't want to repeat these auxiliary verbs. Maybe it just sounds strange to them, but candidate, yes, I did actually. A few times she's used actually, but I think, as a bit of fingerprint language, I think it's okay to have that a bit of actually from time to time. Teachers.
Yes, I did. Actually, a couple of days ago, I was looking through my school memories, like, the diaries and everything, and
So great paraphrase. I was looking through my school memories, the diaries and stuff. So candidate is aware that if she just says looking through my school memories, I might not know what she means. So she adds that extra bit of information, like, the school diaries and stuff. So this shows good paraphrasing skills.
found my school diary from like the fourth grade or something, and I had the same
Good, nice imprecise language or something. Very natural.
teacher, the same English teacher throughout my all throughout my school years.
So cool. She just was hesitant about like how to use throughout, and then she found it throughout my school year. So a slight hesitation, but minimal.
And I found the note, it was like the mark I got in the lesson, it was like 5, which is the highest score.
Again, I love this. The mark was 5, which is the highest score that you can get in Russia, she says. Again, because she doesn't assume that I know what 5 means. She knows that, different countries can have a different grading system, so she knows that she has to add a little paraphrase to explain exactly what that means, and that's very high-level stuff for lexical resource.
The highest mark you can get in school in Russia.
And effortlessly produced. Nice.
But then I looked down at the
A nice was, but then, and nice stress on then, but then I looked down. So pronunciation and intonation is very good.
bottom of the page. There was like this little note, like
Again, dropping that little note, this little note, very British.
behavior is like 2, and it's like the lowest you can get.
And I love the emotive language. When she's using the direct speech of what was written, she uses the voice of her angry teacher. So she conveys more than just meaning. She conveys, or the meaning is conveyed through more than just her words, but it's also shown through her pronunciation. Just watch this again.
It was like this little note, like behavior is like 2, and it's like the lowest you can get. So
Cool. And also, Margaret obviously has a bit of a sense of humor about it, and you can kind of see that it's kind of a playful thing for her. It's kind of a happy memory or something funny for her. And again, this is expressed not just through her facial gestures, her expressions, but also through her intonation. Very, very sophisticated, high-level stuff.
yeah, I think that was my relationship with this teacher throughout all my school years.
And one thing I often say to my students with IELTS is, there are no points for body language and there are no points for facial expression, but positivity goes a long way. It can affect your pronunciation if you are positive. It helps with the intonation, but also it just goes a long way in making a good impression. I understand many candidates feel very, very nervous, and so because they feel nervous, they seem bored or they seem sad or upset or something, and this, I think, negatively affects their performance. But Margaret smiles throughout Margaret smiles throughout this test, and I think you can hear that positivity in her pronunciation.
Yeah, but that was fun.
And have you ever taken any courses outside of school or university?
Outside of school, I guess not, but right now I'm
Cool, a little bit of echoing, but that's fine. It's very natural. Instead of pausing, she said, outside of school, I guess not. And again, we've had I hope not, and now I guess not. So showing even more flexibility with this construction.
in the 4th year of my bachelor's degree, and I'm taking additional courses
Cool, present continuous here. I'm taking additional courses. Grammar so far on the money. No mistakes with grammar at all so far.
on the fundamental
Apart from that one, like present perfect continuous passive active thing.
mathematical analysis, the calculus and everything, and also organic chemistry. So I'm taking these to make sure that I'm well prepared for my master's degree.
Okay, vocab is very strong, very specific, and again, readily available for the candidate.
Let's talk about movies now. What type of movies do you enjoy watching?
Well, I actually don't really like movies very much because it's really hard for me to just sit still and like
Called to sit still, very nice bit of colloquial language there, to sit still. I don't know if it's colloquial, but it's certainly a very common collocation in Britain, maybe in America too, to sit still, to sit without moving. Very good stuff.
watch the screen for about 2 hours or so. So I
Love this or so. 2 hours or so. Very nice.
prefer watching series. And the last
But not series is. The plural of series is series. I know, it's annoying. One series, many series.
series I've started to watch was Twin Peaks, and I'm
Twin Peaks is the greatest TV show of all time. So, of course, candidate obviously deserves a band 9 just for watching Twin Peaks. But okay, let's not let that inform my decision.
actually ending watching it right now.
I'm ending watching it right now. Yeah, I'm coming towards the end of the series right now. I'm finishing it. Yeah, I'm ending watching it right now. It's okay. It works.
And how often do you go to the cinema?
Not really often, I guess. Maybe I think this year I've been to the cinema about maybe two.
So you can see a tiny little bit of hesitation, but this is because I genuinely believe that she's actually thinking, how often she goes to the cinema or when she last went to the cinema. I really think she's looking for that information, looking at where her eyes are going. She's trying to access not the language, but she's trying to access the actual information about it. So this type of hesitation doesn't negatively affect the score at all.
2 times or something like this. And since we don't really have international foreign
Cool, using since to show reason, since we don't have international instead of because. Again, good cohesive device there.
movies here in Russia now, I had to watch a couple of Russian movies, and I think it was destructible for my psyche, but still.
It was I don't know about destructible for my psyche here. Maybe it was destructible for my psyche. Maybe it destroyed my psyche. I don't know about the adjective here. I don't know. Come on, you have great actors in Russia like Danila Kozlovsky. I feel your pain. I've seen a few Russian movies in the cinema too.
Still, I've been here for like 2 times.
And do you have a favorite actor or director?
The first thing that comes to mind is
Cool, this is the first thing that comes to mind. And so many people I know say the first thing that comes to my mind, which isn't quite natural. The first thing that comes to mind is more natural, and Margaret really nails this and gets this right. So again, this is an example of like idiomatic language. The first thing that comes to mind is, so really hammering that lexical resource, really getting some good stuff out.
probably Christopher Nolan, because he's also very famous. There are a lot of memes on the net about him.
It's a good reason to have someone as your favorite actor director, I guess.
And I really liked Tenet, especially because of Robert Pattinson. Well, I guess it's the same thing with everyone. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, Robert Pattinson is also a wonderful actor, but that's not what we're judging.
All right, thank you. Now, in this next part of...
Okay, so some comments on part 1. Candidate effortlessly access language. Almost no mistakes at all. I guess the only mistakes she had are possibly mistakes that maybe a native speaker could make with grammar. So far, really hammering that. Lexical resource, super strong. Lots, again, accesses precise language to talk about her studies. She can also speak about movies that she watched. Just a little bit of the strange use of like, it was destructible for my psyche. Just not quite sure about that term, but okay. Pronunciation, I don't need to say anything about that. I think it's quite clear that she has, there are not many language learners in the world who have mastered pronunciation like Margaret has. Fluency and coherence, so far, no major problems. A couple of hesitations, mostly to find content, so no worries with that yet. But keep in mind, this is part 1, but so far, everything more or less perfect for part 1. Let's see how she manages with part 2, where she has to speak on her own.
Okay, so that's the end of your...
So the theme is to describe a technological gadget you find useful. So lots of opportunities to use language connected to tech, connected to the internet and things like this. Yeah, let's just jump in and see how the candidate does.
Preparation time to remind you
Okay, so I would like to tell you about my phone. Well, I guess everyone has one. I think that's actually the thing that you have to use these days. I mean, you just can't say no to it because
You can't say no to it? Yeah, maybe. Usually can't say no to it is usually in response to like an invitation or an offer or a request. I don't know if that's exactly precise. Now, of course, I'm looking at like just thinking between levels of band 9 and band 8 for lexical resource here. You can't say no to your phone. For me, that sounds just slightly strange.
it's
If it's like an offer or an invitation, if somebody says like, "Hey, do you want to, I don't know, go to see the Christopher Nolan movie?" Well, you just can't say no to this offer, to this request, to this invitation, to this suggestion, to this piece of advice. But I'm not sure about, can't say no to a phone.
um, it follows you. I mean, it allows you to follow the
So a bit of a breakdown here, and I think this is partly content, but I think partly it is language too. Let's just watch that with a little bit of cringing.
you have to use these days. I mean, you just can't say no to it because um, it follows you. I mean, it allows you to follow the pace of the everyday life.
But she quickly recovers, right? It allows you to follow. With this wonderful construction, allows somebody to do something, which is a complex gerund structure, or sorry, complex infinitive structure. So all good stuff.
We have now. And I think that the biggest advantage of it is that you can access any information
Cool. The biggest advantage of it is that you can. This is also very complex grammar. Good stuff.
very quickly. I mean, on the net, on any social media, on Reddit, for example.
Sorry, the video quality has just gone down. I'm just going to change that. Sorry about this. Just 1 second. Let me pause. Okay, we're back.
Or Instagram or anything really, or Telegram. I mean, wherever messenger, wherever social network.
Oh, and we're back down. Sorry about that. Let's get right back into it.
You would like to choose, you can just have a really quick access to it. On the other hand, you can scroll through Wikipedia or any other, so-called official sources to make sure you can understand a specific subject, a specific thing very.
So she's speaking at length, willingly and pretty much effortlessly. I don't notice any pain on the candidate's face. This is something you look for. It is in the band descriptors, can speak at length with ease, or can speak at length with relative ease, or can speak at length but with some discomfort. And it doesn't seem to be the case that the candidate is struggling here. She's in the flow of her speech, no problem. And just as I say that, she breaks down. Let's just take a look again.
Specific subject, a specific thing, very. You have the ability to understand it.
Cool. So there is a breakdown there, noticeable breakdown of about 3, 4, maybe about 4 seconds. And that must be a horrible thing for the candidate. I would imagine, poor Margaret is probably in that moment. There are probably a number of thoughts going through her mind, like, oh, can I stop this? Could we pause the test, or should I continue talking? Or I don't know, maybe a number of those thoughts go through her head. But I think this is good to have in the practice, because on test day, you will be nervous, right? On test day, you will have that fear, you will have a bit of that anxiety, and there may be cases where you break down. It is absolutely okay to break down a little bit. It's normal, it happens all the time, but I love the fact that the candidate here doesn't let it break her. Okay, she broke down for about 3, 4, 5 seconds, but she recovers. Let's just watch again with a little bit of pain.
You can scroll through Wikipedia or any other, so-called official sources to make sure you can understand a specific subject, a specific thing very.
So I'm just trying to think of what the language was missing. Like, you can scroll through Wikipedia or other official sources to make sure that it's like, what was that last bit?
Understand a specific subject, a specific thing very.
So she used very, but I think to understand a specific subject in great detail, or to understand it fully, maybe, but because she uses that word very, I think now she's looking for an adjective that means like full, but can't use full here. Or maybe she's looking for an adverb to understand it very fully sounds a bit strange. So maybe some of the things going through her mind are linguistic things. In which case, if you do break down, you can simply use a nice phrase like, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, I've just drawn a blank," or "I'm terribly sorry, I've just lost my train of thought, but let me move on," and then move on to something else. And using that term like "I've lost my train of thought," that shows good idiomatic language too. And that's, what a normal, that's what an L1 user would do in these situations. But okay, let's see how she recovers.
You have the ability to understand it very quickly and
Okay, so the adverb she's gone with in the end is quickly, but okay.
productively without spending any time on going to a library and maybe finding the right section and finding.
So for me, I feel like she's just sped up a little bit here. I feel like now she's just hurrying her language a little bit too much, probably because there was that long pause, and now it's like she's making up for lost time or something like this. I think you can still, relax, and I understand once you have a problem like this where you break down, we don't always control what our bodies do, and we can't always control how fast we speak. People tend to speak more quickly when they are nervous. But it's just a thing to keep in mind that if you break down during the test, take a breath and try to make sure that you're maintaining a natural pace, natural speed.
The right book and so on. And I've had it for 3 years now, and I think it's a bit broken because it doesn't really charge very well, and the accumulator is a bit down. So I
don't know about accumulator. Again, I think that's an L1 transference error, where in Russian аккумулятор, but in English your phone has a battery, not an accumulator.
I'm going to change it in I think about a month to come.
Yeah, so
for
just
3 years now.
So again, it's not massively noticeable, but for me it is noticeable that the speed of her speech is now a little bit too fast, and I think this results in like her mouth working a little bit faster than her brain, and she kind of trips over a little bit of language. Just notice it here.
Productively without spending any time on going to a library and maybe finding the right section and finding the right book and so on. And
so on. She's like rushing in that and so on, but finding the right book and so on. Pause.
I've had it for 3 years now, and I think it's a bit broken because
I've had it for 3 years now, and I think it's a bit broken. It's just a little bit too fast.
On going to a library and maybe finding the right section and finding the right book and so on. And I've had it for 3 years now, and I think it's a bit broken because it doesn't really charge very well, and the
And the result of that, of course, is that you can slip over that. It doesn't really charge very well. You're trying to mix that j sound of the charge at the end of charge with the v at the beginning of very, but mixing j and v together is difficult. It's difficult to say very quickly that it charges. It doesn't seem to charge very well. Transitioning from the j to the v is difficult. So if you speak too quickly and you have to go from a j to a v, you're gonna fall over it. So, breathe a little bit, calm down, slow your speech. It doesn't charge very quickly.
Because it doesn't really charge very well, and the accumulator is a bit down. So I'm going to change it in I think about a month to come.
In about months to come. So again, this breakdown, this reformulation is the result of the speaking being too quickly. But okay, I think I've made that point, I hope.
So I can also say that I use it, I think, on an everyday basis because everyone does.
Okay, on an everyday basis, good stuff. I feel like we're kind of losing the natural flow of the conversation. We've explained like why it's useful, what we use it for, and now we're going back to circling back to how long you've had it or how often you use it. I don't know.
So, but on the other hand, I think that it is very unnecessary to use social media a lot, and the smartphone always in your hand basically provokes you to do that, and you have.
Sure, and that is a fair point, but our focus should be on a technological gadget that you find useful. And of course, there are moments in part 2 where you could say, like, on the other hand, there are some downsides to it. But I really think you only have 2 minutes, and try to always keep in mind what the task is asking you to do. It's asking you to describe a technological gadget you find useful and really to explain why it's so useful. And so we don't want to spend too much time talking about why it's not useful or some of the downsides.
You have to resist this temptation to make sure that you just
Vocab is great. Resist this temptation, just absolutely fantastic.
don't get, all twirled up in this swirl
Dwelt up.
of unnecessary activity.
The swell of unnecessary activity. Very nice.
And I think that's
Okay,
social
thank you.
media.
Cool. So, she got through the 2 minutes, had no problem filling the 2 minutes. I think before the breakdown, she was fine. After the breakdown, there was still a lot of things to like about her language, but I just felt like she was speaking a little bit too fast after that breakdown. But okay, as expected, no big problems in part 2. Vocab is still just on point. Pronunciation is still on point. Didn't notice any grammar mistakes, and certainly we have a nice variety of structures, so grammar is still going very, very strong. Of course, fluency drops a little bit in this part, so that's probably enough to say, unfortunately, the candidate won't get a band 9 overall, because we know if you just get one small, like you get one criterion which is less than 9, then you don't get the band 9, but certainly she's looking very strong for the 8.5. But let's see how she does in part 3, where we get some kind of trickier, wider world discussion questions.
So you've been describing a technological gadget you find useful. Let's move on now and talk about technology in general. How has technology changed the way that we communicate?
Well, in many ways, actually. I mean, even now we are talking through Zoom, thanks to whoever invented it, but still.
Cool, thanks to nice little cohesive device. Okay, she doesn't know who invented it, but thanks to whoever invented it. I love these wherever, whenever, whoever words. I think they're great. I've even forgotten the linguistic term for those words. Shame on me. I did know it, I promise you. No, I'm not going to sit here and try to think. Let's keep going.
And also, it's been a lot of help in the coronavirus season, I believe. And also, of course, we can see
coronavirus season. I think that's okay. That's acceptable.
Even like on the Apple website, they update their gadgets, I think like a couple of times each year. And that's actually a question of whether...
The question is how has technology affected the way we communicate, right? Wasn't that the question? Now we say on the Apple website they have some updates there. I don't really see exactly how that deals with how we communicate. Maybe.
It's necessary, or whether it's actually required, because they don't change a lot and that can cause overconsumption. But still, yeah, I think that's how technologies change.
And do you think technology can help us to be happier?
Well, let's see. What was the question? Sorry, I've forgotten there. Just 1 second.
Change the way that we communicate.
Yeah, so it's not how has technology changed, but how has technology changed the way we communicate. And the point about Zoom, absolutely fine. I didn't quite get the point about Apple, but not a big deal. Let's move on.
Yeah, I think that's how technologies change.
And do you think technology can help us to be happier?
That's a tricky question.
Well, yes, definitely. But again, it's a big question because, obviously, there's been a talk about how dopamine is easily produced in the brain.
Cool. So again, nice passive structure with an adverb and also putting the adverb before the verb. Usually adverbs of manner go after verbs, like to do something quickly. But very often in the passive, those adverbs of manner go before the verb, so it is easily produced. And so this again is showing an awareness of real high-level style.
Thanks to the social media, like Reels or Shorts on YouTube or whatever.
Reels and Shorts, topic-specific language.
But still, it's...
A lot of people think that you have to use like crazy long Greek, Latin-based words to get band 9 in speaking. You don't. Words like reels and shorts, they are very, very, very specific to this topic, and so those are the kind of words that really can elevate your talk.
It actually destroys the neurochemical links in our brain. So
The neurochemical links in your brain. Wow.
We have to be very careful about it. For example, like I believe the Zoomers and the Alphas, I mean the Alpha generation, obviously.
Again, showing an awareness of colloquialisms, referring to, people born in a particular generation as Zoomers or Alphas, but also the candidate has enough cultural knowledge to know that when I say alpha, I don't mean alpha like the alpha male, but I mean alphas, people born from this generation. And so she takes time to explain that she knows that. And again, that's just high level lexical resource.
Some people from those generations are very addicted to social media, and it must be they must be very careful when using it.
A bit of a reformulation there, but not a problem.
And some people think that schools and universities are too slow to use new technology. What do you think?
Well, I wouldn't say so, because
Again, I wouldn't say so. So we get this, I hope not, I guess not, I wouldn't say so. It's, yeah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
actually I've been thinking about it just yesterday, I believe.
So, okay, technically this is a grammar mistake. I've been thinking about it just yesterday. Yesterday's a finished time adverbial, so, I was just thinking about it yesterday is more correct, but this is the kind of mistake that I find myself making. Oh, I've done it, a couple of days ago. So I use that present perfect or present perfect continuous because I'm talking about something recent, and then later I add the time adverbial, and they might not always match perfectly, but for me this is a classic example of the kind of mistake that an L1 user or native speaker could make.
I've been thinking about how, when I was even in the 4th grade of school or something.
When I was in the 4th grade. So again, sentence stress is good. The little parasite word of, the little filler, all very natural stuff. Great.
There was like one computer in a school and that's it.
And that's it. Great. There was just one computer and that's it. Nice.
In my university these days, there is a computer in each classroom.
Candidate has no problem switching between the past and the present.
So you don't really have to go look for it or anything.
You don't really have to, dropping that T, you don't really have to go look for it. Great, to go look for something. Wow, highest level of vocab. You don't really have to go look for it. To go look for it. Incredible.
It is just there. And you take it as something that is just given. You take it for granted. And
Cool, to take something for granted. Again, that is a nice bit of idiomatic language.
Used to it, and you're actually very annoyed when it's not there. So yeah, I wouldn't say that universities, maybe I'm just speaking from the position of a person who lives.
Cool, so she adds a concession, she doubts herself, she develops it. That's a good way. This is called a concession, and again we see it in the highest levels of what the Cambridge exams might call interactive communication, that adding a concession there. But maybe I'm just speaking on from the perspective of blah, 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 blah. So, she's balancing what she's saying.
In the capital of the state. But yeah, I wouldn't say that it is like something very unusual here.
But reaffirms her point. So this is very, very good in terms of communicative achievement. We know there isn't a criteria, communicative achievement, in the IELTS test, but still impressive.
And do you think we'll ever reach a point where maybe technology will replace teachers?
I hope not.
Again, we have I hope not.
Because, I've been trying to do this test.
Again, effortlessly producing this present perfect continuous. I've been trying to do this test.
Which is AI generated. I mean, it's been human checked, obviously, but it was AI generated.
It's been human checked, so we get present perfect passive. Very nice.
In the first place. And you can't really explain your situation to a computer, and that can be very debatable. I mean, that's the same question with the services and everything. But if talking about education specifically, I think it is very...
Talking about education specifically...
I think it's very sort of unsettling for a person to be...
Cool, and again, you could say that she's looking for that word unsettling, but I think... that's exactly that's how I would speak, and that's how many of my friends speak. It's just kind of really unsettling. You're picking the right word not because you lack the vocab, but just because you're trying to be very precise with the vocab. But good stuff.
Be educated by a computer, and that's been showed, in coronavirus era again, because a lot of children were homeschooled this time, and they
Cool to be homeschooled. Very nice.
had to, like, they had to sit through the whole day of
To sit through the whole day. Good idiomatic language.
sitting in front of computer just to make sure that they pass the grade, they pass the exam at the end.
Cool, so she self-corrects, but self-corrects not mid-sentence, but she just used the wrong collocation, passed the grade, passed the test. But again, indicative of a kind of mistake that an L1 user would use, no problem.
Of the semester. So I think they were not really happy with that.
Not really. Very nice. Glottal stop. Bottle of water.
What are some potential downsides of relying too much on technology?
Well, I guess actually there are many areas that I'm not sure about. For example, if talking about education specifically.
I don't know about this if talking. You could just use talking about or if we are talking, but no, I don't like this if talking.
As I said before, it can be very destructive and also annoying to a pupil, to a student, to sit in front of a computer every.
Yeah, candidate here is focusing on education, I think, too much. But the question doesn't talk about education, it talks about things in general. What are the dangers of relying too much on technology? But I guess the candidate still has, the last question in mind about education. And so she's started talking specifically about education. Hopefully she can spread it and speak about things more generally.
Every day when they are used to communicating with the
Could be used to doing something. Not many candidates get this right. Very nice grammar.
teacher, I mean, as a person teacher, on the other hand, if we're talking about production in basically any industry.
Cool, so now we've widened the scope. Good stuff.
Still, I mean, nowadays, the computers and the machinery are not very suitable to operate themselves, because anyways they need a human operator and they can help them, I mean the humans, but they can't really replace them.
Sure, but I'm not quite sure if we're talking about the downsides now of relying too much on technology, are we?
Completely. So I think we're pretty far from this point. But on the other hand, talking about if I think there are more downsides to it, I think there probably are. I think that.
Okay, so the candidates talked about like how we don't like fully rely on it because we always need a human operator. Cool. So it's taking her a bit of time to get to like the real protein of the question, shall we say? Let's see if she gets there.
Probably are, because the human labor is becoming more cheap because it can be easily replaced.
Okay, becoming cheaper, becoming more cheap. The rules say we should use cheaper. Have I heard L1 users use more cheap? Absolutely.
With a machine or something, and I think it's going to cause some havoc if it actually happens ever.
So it'll cause some havoc, but we don't really get a lot of details about how it could cause havoc, but okay.
Okay, thank you. That is the end of the test.
So a small drop in coherence slightly just with that last question, but I don't think that will affect the scores too much because, of course, we measure IELTS holistically. We have a number of band descriptors and we find what we call the best fit. So, not every band descriptor, you might not have every single detail, but we find the one that suits the candidate the best. And I don't think this is a difficult test to judge. I think it's quite an easy test to judge. I asked some people what they thought the candidate's performance was. And a lot of people in the comment section said, maybe 7.5. For me, fluency and coherence is 8. So, in general, let's add some notes. In general, your response, the length of your responses is perfect. You also use a wonderful variety of cohesive devices, those linking words, things like this. Great. But cohesive devices, they're more than just linking words. But okay, I don't want to go into detail. Cool. Your answers are almost always on topic and rarely stray from, like move away from, stray from the topic. Repetition of the word topic. Subject. However, there were a couple of noticeable breakdowns, especially in part two, and very rare instances of going off topic a little. So for me, I think 8 is fair for that. I don't think we can drop it enough to a 7. Lexical resource, I think we can say 9. Although there was like accumulator and destructible, is that enough to pull you down from a band 9? I think no. I think you have full flexibility. Full flexibility on a wide range of topics. Showing awareness of style and collocation, and even including natural sounding colloquialisms. Yeah, full flexibility. For me, easy to judge lexical resource. Grammatical range and accuracy, for me, it is a 9. There were a couple of tiny mistakes, in inverted commas, which could easily be made by an L1 user. That is part of the criteria, by the way. If it's the kind of mistake that we could expect an L1 user to make, then fine, it doesn't affect your grammar. Your range is phenomenal, and the speed with which you access complex grammar is very impressive. So it doesn't seem like you've, I don't know, it doesn't seem like you've learnt English. It seems like you've acquired English. It doesn't seem like you've sat down and learnt all of the conditionals and all of the passives and all of the tenses and things like this and all of the verb patterns with gerunds and infinitives. I don't know if you have, but it doesn't sound like you have. It sounds like you've acquired this language. You've absorbed this language, not that you've mechanically learnt it. You know, I don't see you looking. Like when I'm sometimes speaking Russian, I look for the right case. I think like, okay, is it like dative case? Oh yeah, it's dative case. And I think of the ending and it slows down the language production a little bit. But with you, no, doesn't happen. Cool, good stuff. Pronunciation, 9. In the words of Donald Trump, you speak goodly. I don't need to say anything about pronunciation, right? It's yeah, noticeably great. I think I've made enough comments during the video. So yeah, overall, unfortunately, this candidate now has overall a score of 8.5. 8.5. Now, my advice to the candidate. What is my advice to the candidate? Areas of improvement? None. Don't change a thing. Don't change a thing. Go into the test and treat it like a speaking test. Don't treat it like a test. Don't treat it like an exam. Treat it like a conversation. Treat it like someone is just speaking to you in English. Don't change a thing. Don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. You have, in my opinion, an overall score of 8.5. We do not want to go chasing that 9 with fluency and coherence and then let anything else slip. It's very, very possible. Without breakdowns, you may even get the 9 in fluency and coherence. My prediction for this candidate is that she will probably get 8.5, and that's because, in general, there are reasons why, but IELTS examiners generally don't like giving the 9. It's much safer for them to give the score of 8.5. But of course, if an IELTS examiner truly believes that you are deserving of the 9, they could award the 9. I think you'll get 8.5. You don't need to get the 9. Nobody needs to get the 9. 8.5 is absolutely fantastic, and you should be proud of that if that's the score that you get. The floor, I think the lowest possible score you can get is an 8. I don't think you'll get less. Perhaps a really really harsh examiner might look at lexical resource and think, oh, I don't like accumulator, so I'm giving you 8. I don't like destructible, so I'm giving you 8. They might look at it has been reconstructed for 2 years and think, no, that's not a fair mistake, so they might give you an 8, and that could bring your score down to an overall 8. I don't think you can possibly get less than an 8 in the real test. But that's just my opinion. What do I know? All right, so I hope you enjoyed that feedback of Margaret's speaking test. If you have any comments, if you disagree with anything I say, please do let me know. One interesting thing about growing this channel is that I've started to get some negative comments, so those are a lot of fun to look at. Please always keep in mind that whenever I make critical comments about a person's language, it is not a criticism of that person, right? I'm only measuring the language. It doesn't mean that the person is stupid or that the person is lazy or anything like that. It is not a judgment of the person. I'm only trying to objectively judge language, objectively. Anyway, I'll leave it there for now. If you would like your own free practice speaking test with feedback, or if you would like a writing check on your IELTS, then you can apply for this through the Telegram channel. A link to the Telegram channel is given below. And if you need to contact me for anything else, my Facebook and my email address are given in the description to this video too. If you made it to the end of the video, congratulations to all 2 of you. Yeah, but I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.